Okay, so far we saw Korea's trade performance and also major partners, of Korea's trade. And next, policy issues. So evolution of Korea's trade policy. One page, many years, but anyway, when former President Park Chung-hee became the president, he has to think about the changing the South Korea, how we transform South Korea so that we can get out of the poverty. We only have people, not much natural resources, not much industrial base. So what he does was he asked all the people, whole population, including companies and even individuals, try to export anything. Export anything. Then we will help you, okay, in terms of providing some financial credits and some facilities. Even we can hear you about the bottlenecks of your export performance. We want to call upon the cabinet meetings. We want to resolve it. And we change the exchange rate so that you can export better. So anyway, every government policy is focusing on how to promote exports, because we have to earn money. And using this money, we can buy some capital goods, things like that. So at that time, import is virtually banned. Unless you show the evidence, we need this so that we can make some goods and export. For the export purposes, you can import. One episode is this. In other words, don't spend dollar on your consumption good. So my generation, my father's generation, they never imagine you spend money on imported goods, right? So I was a college student 4 decades. I was in freshman in 1971. My college of Commerce, Seoul National University, is now far away from here. But my college at the time, Seoul National University, each college is located in different locations. So my College of Commerce was very close to Korea University. So I have to go there. But anyway, at the time, as usual, you smoke cigarettes. But 1970s, Korean cigarettes are very, very poor. So we have to buy, smuggled American cigarettes. We have a special police. They can detect you even 10 meters away by looking at the smoke, how smokes are moving. Korean cigarettes are so poor. If you smoke on the street, smoke have no pattern, going like this. But American cigarettes are moving smoothly. So police catch you, then you have to pay fine. That means everybody is concerned about not consuming, foreign goods by paying $1. So we are only concentrating on exporting. So that's the 10-year period. We are exporting what? Dress shirts, shoes, hats, very labor-intensive items, because we have no technology. And actually, first item we export, formally to United States. I can ask you, but it's a wig. The wig, the hair, made of real hair, not artificial hair. So mothers, sisters, daughters, they cut their hair and sell to the street buyers, and then collect hair and they make a wig and then export to United States. Our wig manufacturing companies are still dominant player in the world, but size is very small compared to automobile or shipbuilding, those kind of things. But still we are doing it, not in Korea, but in Indonesia and other places. But anyway, we call export promotion period. These policies by experts are called export promotion, but it's a neutral policy. What do we mean by neutral? We are not selecting specific sectors. We are promoting every possible export. We are not, subsidizing any special sectors. We are, promoting overall exports, regardless of your sectors you are in. So that's the period. We joined the GATT in 1967. If you join the GATT, you have to fulfill a lot of responsibilities, but you are so poor, we joined the GATT without much difficulties. Because you are developing countries, okay, we are welcome you. We welcome you. So we joined the GATT without much market opening. But anyway, that's the period. And President Park Chung-hee was considering if you export wigs or dress shirts, shoes, forever, how can we make our economic development? So he changed his mind out of export promotion to heavy and chemical industrial promotion, which was a little bit excessive kind of vision because we are poor still. And if you promote this industry, you have to have money. But we don't have money. We have to borrow money from outside. But Korea was not known. Korean companies are not known. So nobody is lending the money. But we have a very dynamic entrepreneurs, like a founder of Samsung, founder of Hyundai. You cannot imagine how actively they go abroad and try to borrow money. So, long story, but another 10 years, we heavily pour money into heavy industries. For example, shipbuilding, machine, steel, electronics, and chemical products. We don't produce oil, but we buy oil and make products out of oil. Okay, so that's the kind of heavy industry project. And international organizations like World Bank or Asia Development Bank, major financial companies, they all say, no, you cannot do that. Your situation is not well developed. So what Park Chung-hee did is recruit Korean scholars. We are so poor situation, but still many people went abroad, especially United States, because US provide the scholarship. So they recruit engineers, scientists, and they form a special committee on heavy and chemical industry promotion committee, and President Park asked them to evaluate the possible, plan for doing this kind of stuff. And they, produce a result that we can try, So that's why they did. But to make a long story short, we borrow too much, okay? And we invest too much. We create overcapacity, overlapping, like in terms of steel production. Today, the same situation. Already, big players are producing steel. We are producing more steel. You create overcapacity. So we are in dilemma. We are in very poor situation. We borrow heavily and overlapping investment, overcapacity, oversupply. So we are about to go bankruptcy, because we cannot pay the interest payment to the bank. But Korea was so fortunate. Coming into early 80s, we are facing huge difficulties. And we print the money a lot. So we have inflation, overborrowing. Our foreign exchange reserves are very poor. So we are about to go bankruptcy. But fortunately, from mid-1980s, U.S. economy was booming again, okay? So U.S. economy is booming means world economy is booming. Suddenly, those over-invested sectors, overnight, they become an exporting sector because demand for these kind of heavy items are rising in the world economy. So we avoided possible bankruptcy, and suddenly we are selling this good to the world, okay? That's why we become a number one shipbuilding company. Now China is following very closely, and then now we are making a steel. POSCO Steel is founded during those time, and we are number one competitive steel makers. Machines and electronics means semiconductors, and at that time we didn't designate the automobile. We thought maybe shipbuilding is easier than automobile, but anyway now we are selling automobile. So that's why many developing countries saying, could you recommend developing countries to replicate, Korean development model? I said no. At least I cannot say yes, because this kind of thing is planned and pursued by one strong leader. But our environment was so lucky for Korea. So I don't know whether your heavy investment guaranteed by the government will become successful or not, okay? If it's not successful, then you are in big trouble, okay? So today, textbook says, if you have a very lucrative, very nice investment opportunities, then don't let the government guarantee or borrow money for you. Visit the private financial company and show and explain, we have a good project, why don't you lend the money for us? This is much more stable, much more safe kind of approach than government is involving in this kind of huge project. Anyway, so those are the things. So 1980s, we start to stabilize our economy by curbing the inflation. And then that's the time we start to liberalize. We didn't think about liberalization up until 80s, but mid-80s, we participate the Uruguay. We start to participate Uruguay round, and we joined the OECD in 1996 by opening up our capital markets, and also if you go to the WTO, you have to declare yourself whether you are a developing country or not. But Korea was considered developing country. It's a self-declaration. 1989, many member countries of GATT says you are no longer a developing country. So we are challenged. We decide to graduate from developing country status. That doesn't mean that we are advanced countries, but this is what happened. So up until 1990s, we just depend on multilateral trading system, never thought about FTA. But we heard the news in 1993, Mexico formed FTA with United States and Canada. This is NAFTA. This is the problem of today. Trump is not, he doesn't like this kind of agreement. But anyway, we heard the news. Up until that time, as a scholar, I was working for some research organization. We didn't know whether Mexico is so important for Korea. Mexico is important to Korea because Mexico is our competitor, our rivalry. Where? In the US market. In Mexico and Korea, in terms of economic development status, Korea is a little bit ahead, but very similar to each other. And they have a 75 million population, much bigger than Korea. If Korea is united, very similar to each other. So cheap labor, huge land, lots of resources, very close to the United States. So you remember 1980s, 1990s, almost 40% of our export is going to United States. And we are severely competing with Mexican companies. And now Mexico, geographically close to United States, now they have FTA, that means no tariff. So we are scared, we are concerned. We have to do something. We cannot just simply depend upon multilateral system. So we are thinking about, and also the general public start to complain, what do you do? Mexico is having FTA with the United States and Korea is doing nothing. So we are searching for countries. And Mexico said, no, we don't want to have FTA with you. So searching countries in the Latin American countries by some, simulation, all kinds of things. We end up choosing Chile. So Korea-Chile FTA is the first FTA Korea had. But in choosing Chile, it was not systematically planned. Okay? It is kind of immediate response to the fact that Mexico had FTA with the United States. So we feel sorry to Chile because Chile is chosen by accident or whatever. But anyway, it creates huge also problem too because Chile was exporting, the pork, meat, and also fruits, especially the grapes. Lots of resistance from Korean farming community. But anyway, it was implemented in 2004. And then the president, Roh Moo-hyun, he became a president in 2003, somehow got a lot of recommendation. We have to have multiple FTAs. but we don't have any plan. So for the first time in our history, 2003, Nomuyon government drew a roadmap plan. We want to pursue FTAs more systematically, and they define some criteria. Okay, so mostly the priorities are given to large advanced countries like the United States and EU, and also large developing countries like China or ASEAN or India, those kind of things. So we have a plan. And Japan also included too. So we try that, we try to implement based on that kind of plan. That's what we have been doing so far. And right now, knowing that the FTA is very important, we are now taking so-called multi-track approaches. WTO activities, we are actively participating, but WTO is not going anywhere these days. And then RTAs, FTAs, so multilateral, regional, and also bilateral. We are participating all kind of trade policy activities. Okay, right now we have 15 FTAs, including Korea-US, Korea-EU, Korea-India, Korea, China. But EU is 28 countries, ASEAN 10 countries. So we have 15 FTAs, but if you count the countries which are involved in FTAs with Korea is 52 countries. And then, remember Korea's GDP, out of world GDP is 1.8%. If we combine 52 partners' GDP together, total GDP of our partners is increased to 73.2%. Some governments, including Lee Myung-bak government, they call this our economic territory. Our economic territory, is expanded. But I don't like to use the economic territory. Our partner is getting bigger. And most FTA partners one country has in the world is Chile. 95% their partners. And then Peru. And then Korea is number 3rd. So Korea become the country which has huge FTA network by now. And right now we have a FTA negotiation with Indonesia. And then CJK, so-called we call CJK, which means China, Japan, Korea, trilateral FTAs, which I also launched in 2012. Do you think it is moving well or not? It's not at all. Because Korea, China, Korea, Japan, China, Japan, they are not doing well these days. So it's started, it's moving nowhere. And then we call RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which was created in response to a TPP, 16 countries, which is ASEAN, 10, and then CJK, Australia, New Zealand, and India was there. I also participated in launching this RCEP, but it is also moving very, very slowly. Even though China said, we want to show leadership, it doesn't show any leadership. I mean, just sit there. Who is leading? ASEAN. ASEAN is very slow, as you know. So we are not expecting much out of RCEP either. And what about the FTA, major FTA Korea is considering? I told you maybe Korea Mercosur. I didn't say that, but maybe in the future we want to do it. And we also want to do FTA with Eurasia. Europe and Eurasia means Europe. I mean Russia and East Asian. Those Central Asia. Those kind of things we are also considering, but also people thinking that maybe Japan succeed in implementing TPP 11 except the United States. That's what Japan is trying to do, and I think sometime next year maybe this will start. But TPP 11 is not very impressive because it is without United States. But in any case, Korea may consider joining the TPP 11 also in the future. Okay, these are our network. The green ones are our FTA's partners, which are actually in implementation. And pretty impressive, right? 15 FTAs all over the world. So, if I summarize implications of Korea's FTA network, first of all, Korea is a unique country that has FTAs with both major advanced countries like the United States and EU and large emerging countries, China, ASEAN, India, and Turkey too. So we have a very unique countries. And I already told you, 73.2% of global GDP is our partners' GDP. And so why this is important to Korean economy? And for me, who are specializing in international trade and international trade policy and FTAs, this is very important. Becoming an, excellent opportunity. This kind of FTA, this kind of FTA network is very important in Korean economy, because think about who will create jobs in the future in the Korean economy. Ordinary good quality jobs like college graduates. Who will create new jobs? Not Samsung, not LG anymore. They are assembling all the products outside Korea. So inside Korea, what they are doing is running the research and development center, innovation center. They're only recruiting people who have PhD degrees and some kind of engineer degrees, very high level degrees. So plain jobs they don't create. But in terms of number of the companies in Korea, more than 90% of the companies are small and medium-sized companies. But they are not creating good jobs for young people, because they are only doing domestic activities or helping, the large conglomerates. So we are suggesting strongly these small and medium-sized companies can become global companies. What do you mean by global? You are making some goods and export to the world. You will be part of the global chain, even the small one. Okay. Then you need, if that company succeed in terms of selling things in the global market, you have to hire some young people who can speak foreign languages and who has some marketing, courses, So they create nice jobs. Each company create 5 more jobs. But we have a huge number of SMEs in Korea, which are mostly in the domestic market. So we encourage small and medium-sized companies. I met the CEOs of small and medium companies right after Korea-US FTA started to be implemented. In Busan, I went to Busan and I gathered with a small number of business people. But they said that, okay, Korea-US FTA is good, but it's only for big companies, because we don't have anybody who speak English. We don't have anybody who can make a brochure or pamphlet in foreign languages. We don't know the market situation or how much demand is there in the overseas market. We don't have anything, but we are making very good stuff. Then what do? We can help, government can help developing, the small and medium-sized companies. Korea International Trade Association, they have a nice system to help small and medium-sized companies. They help, fulfilling the documents of origin. They send the, English speaking people to make pamphlets. They gather information of the overseas market. So we are helping really seriously small and medium-sized companies so that they can become global companies. In that way, each company can gradually increase the employment opportunity for young people. So this is what really we means trade experts are really hoping to promote. And one more thing is this. We have 15 FTAs covering all over the world. That means we can become a foreign investment hub. In other words, we advertise to European companies, German companies, for example. They are exporting to China. Why don't you come to Korea and establish some kind of production base or even R&D center? Then you make something and sell to China using, hopefully, Korea-China FTA. Then you can lower the tariff. You can save the transportation cost. Isn't that nice? You can come here. So Korea, wage is too high, and lots of labor demonstration. We don't want to go there. But if you show 73.2% of the world GDP is connected with us, then maybe they will have a different mind, okay? And also, Korea has nice, IT sectors. We have a much better legal system in terms of protecting intellectual property rights compared to other developing countries. So we can be an attractive factor if you introduce our FTA networks. Foreign companies come. Right away, they want to hire some local employees. Who they want to hire? College graduates, especially those people are graduating from international studies or something like that. So they can create decent jobs for young people. Current government is trying to create jobs in the government sector. This is okay too. But the more attractive jobs should be created by private companies, and especially small and medium-sized companies, and also foreign companies who come to Korea. That's our hope, so that they can use our FTA network. So finally, this is just list of the future homework for our policymakers. First one, right now protectionism is rising. I don't want to explain this to you. They are shooting to each other. Anti-dumping duties, all kind of things. So we have to do something. And then going to the WTO, but WTO is not working properly anymore. But also here, we have to join the efforts in terms of revitalizing the multilateral trading system. Doha round, you heard the negotiation, major negotiation, which was started in 2001. We are supposed to end this negotiation by 2004. 16 years later, we don't conclude anything, and also even worse, we don't have any hint how to conclude the Doha round, because we have a confrontation between China, Brazil, India versus EU, United States. US lost appetite of multilateral trading system. We are in big crisis. I can spend another hour to talk about this kind of world trading environment, but this is very, very important. Korea really think that the multilateral trading system is very important to Korea, which is a small country. The Korea-China relations these days because of THAAD. China is hassling some Korean business things. We can go back to WTO and discuss this kind of matter. Then we can protect against big players. But now multilateral system is drifting without any clear vision. And then CJK, RCEP, I don't think we have a good success, but Korea can play some role. And then also engage in the so-called amendment negotiation of Korea-US FTA, which is also very sensitive. If this FTA is negotiation result is open, then maybe Korean people may say that this is unfair. Then politically, it can be a huge problem, not only in the United States, but also in Korea. So it's a very, very sensitive one, but we don't know how we can conclude. And maximizing the utilization of the existing FTAs, I already told you. And then we have to make consumers feel that, we have a benefits out of FTAs. We have huge FTAs, but not many consumers are really liking the result, because still we have a very complicated distribution systems. So wine is imported without tariff from Chile, maybe $10, but final price consumers are paying is almost $30. Why is that so? Because there are so many layers in the distribution sector, which is taking the profit out of the process. The consumers are ending up paying huge money, then say, what's for this FTA? So we have to do some domestic reform. Lastly, trade liberalization these days are viewed very negatively by even general public. That's why shrewd politicians like Trump use that kind of people so that they won the election. Brexit decision, they never thought about this kind of possible outcome, but general public was led by politicians, and saying against globalization, against market liberalization. So I think we should do something. We means government policymakers should provide some so-called inclusive policies. We can help losers, so-called losers. These losers means unemployed people. If you look at studies, main reason for unemployment is technology development, not trade, not immigration. But still, they don't like free trade, they don't like globalization, so we have to still help those losers, especially the young losers. We have to take them to the futuristic sector, okay, by helping them, giving them education, training. Without that, you cannot get the support from general public about FTAs. They don't care. Then in terms of economic kind of aspect, we are losing a lot of efficiencies. We are losing a lot of competition and things like that. So it's bad. So we have to do something for those people who are negatively affected by international trade. I'll stop here. I think I spent too much time. Okay. According to the instruction by Dr. Liu, I have to come down to the floor. We open the floor for discussions. Okay? Okay. I spent too much time in my lecture. Yes?
Thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. I would like to know, why do you think that such a thing like the miracle of the Han River never really took place in North Korea?
Okay, I can collect one question and another question. This gentleman.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. You talked about Korea's FTA with the European Union. And obviously you've got the Brexit decision that's affected that. Could you see Korea agreeing a sort of similar FTA with the UK post-Brexit when the UK leaves the European Union?
Okay, the first question, we can do the same thing in North Korea. It depends on the North Korean leadership. We don't, actually, to be very frank, we don't want to have a overnight unification. It can create huge chaotic situation. So I hope North Korea open. We suggest through some third party, why don't you join the WTO? Then you can increase a lot of credibility or transparency of your country. You can join the ADB membership. You can join the World Bank membership. Then those people, if you don't like direct help from South Korea, you go to the international organizations. Then you can build up the infrastructure. You can build up some, we know the Kaesong, industrial complex. We try some experiment. You can do the same thing all over the North Korean places. Then gradually they increase their income. Then our unification cost, if it ever happen, will be reduced. So we really want to suggest to North Korea, you give up the nuclear things, and then you should make economic development. And in terms of wages, cheapest wages in the world. So if this North Korean laborers know that the wage level outside, especially in Korea, and Korean company want to exploit that, it can, face huge resistance. So maybe gradually you open up your economy by the help of, international organization, but actual company who can help is Korean companies. So together with international organization, our Korean company go into North Korea, then we can make really another miracle of, Pyongyang or whatever, we can do that. And your question is, right after the Brexit decision, we already, both governments start to discuss this because UK and Korea is very close in terms of trading activities. But we have some procedures. And EU also want to have some adjustment after Brexit is really happen. And then we want to start negotiating with UK for our separate negotiation. Maybe similar level of EU-Korea FTA in the future. Okay. Some more questions? Yes?
Hello. Thanks for your comprehensive presentation on Korean trade. It is known that historically in current day, that the Korean government maintains a very close relationship and ties with its big conglomerates like Hyundai and Samsung. So I wanted to know specifically what is being done to combat this tendency and promote and integrate these small and medium-sized companies into the world market and trade.
Your question is very important question. One more question, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
My question is about the, for example, right now in the world, the tariffs are almost abolished around the world. I mean, there's a lot of FTAs that abolish the tariffs, but we have seen that the problem right now to trade is the non-tariffs barriers that are causing the trade is blocked. So my question is about your opinion about the non-tariffs barriers. Thank you.
Okay, very relevant question too. Your question about the relationship between conglomerates and government. If you go back to 1970s, it got to be, related, because company have no money, you cannot borrow money, then government should guarantee the even foreign loans. Okay, so at that time we create nice wording of that kind of relationship. For the poor country, you don't have any choice. This is the only choice you can do. So-called risk sharing by government, companies, and financial institutions. That kind of, trilateral relationship was developed in Japan first. We learned that. China is doing the same thing, right? So if you look at the East Asian countries, Korea, Japan, China, one common characteristic is very retarded financial service sector. Because you don't have to improve your sector. You only receive the phone call from the government. Government say, you give this money to this company, okay? In the case of Korea, in the 60s and 70s, 70s and early 80s, the market rate is like a 20%. If you borrow from the not market rate, the curve rate outside the system, you have to borrow 20 or 30% interest rate. If you borrow from the bank, 6% or 5%. So your borrowing money is a big deal, right? So if you have that kind of incentive, what do you want to do? You have to help the friend, your friends at the government, right? So we have a very close ties. It become later corruption, those kind of things. So you can see these days, even the vice chairman of Samsung is now in jail. It's very pity to see this kind of thing. So competition policy per se and transparency, deregulation should be the key, to remove this kind of situation. I think through this kind of investigation and this kind of period, our environment will become much more transparent and clean. I hope so. I hope that way, right? And you apply right tax system, right? For inheritance tax, whatever, very fair tax system, and open up so that you don't have anything to worry about the corruption. You have to compete with the international companies. Then there's no room for corruption. But protection means lots of profits there, rents are there. So they want to take these rents. With whom? By whom? Bribing the government officials. That's the typical pattern. Okay, but we have to get rid of this. So market opening is very important. That you can enhance competition. Your non-tariff barriers, this is really a headache. And as you see, through many rounds of trade negotiations, virtually there's no tariff, 2%, 3%, especially in the advanced countries. But non-tariff barriers means once you import, and then distribution is very complicated. And some companies, I don't want to name the country, but some countries, private sector, you retired from companies, big companies, you are old enough, but you create another companies which are producing parts of the companies, parts of the some machines or automobile, and then ask the main company, say, you should use only my parts, not other parts. So it's a private deal. Only thing is your competition policy should solve the problem, but not trade policy, because it's not the government. Trade policy only dealing with government measures, okay? So that kind of thing you cannot handle. So I think, this is a big, issues, but for the sake of your own people, own consumers' welfare, government should apply more aggressively on competition policy to get rid of this non-tariff barriers, because non-tariff barriers, usually they seek for premiums and rents, which means corruption should be involved. But it's not the government behavior. So that's the problem. So each government, so these days, because Doha round is not moving ahead, many scholars and experts are suggesting we should discuss about more non-tariff barriers, especially regulations. Okay, we have to have a much more transparent regulations. That's part of the non-tariff barrier discussion. Okay, some other question?
Thank you so much for your presentation. I have a question about the FTA between Korea, China, and Japan. So considering the political situation right now and the struggles that both Korea, China, and Korea-Japan relations face, do you think that will happen in the next years, let's say like maybe 10 years or less than 10 years? What do you think? Would it really become possible?
It is easy to do, actually, because, we have a model, and we have a nice, comprehensive so-called prototype, the agreements. Only thing is, what do you do about the schedule of your market liberalization? You can easily do. And Korea, China already have some setting. But it's not the political things. The China is afraid of Japanese advanced companies. They don't want to open up. But they want to say, oh, because of political situation, we don't want to really do it. And to some extent, Korean companies, if you survey the Korean industries, 90% of the industry say we are afraid of Japanese companies. So government should pursue actual negotiations. You listen to the company. Companies never say, okay, we want to have FTA. Never say that. Okay. So we have to do it, but maybe a little bit lower level than Korea-US FTA, but 85% or 90%. Then we give some time schedule to be prepared. We open up to Japanese companies. I will give you 10 years. Then among companies, some companies start to work to respond to the possible invasion of Japanese products. But you exclude my sector out of Korea, China, Japan deal, then you become complacent. You don't have to do anything. But that's not good. You have to introduce competition, but give some time schedule. Then they can be prepared. But because of political situation, I don't see any kind of outcome to be made soon. It can take a lot of time. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for. Okay, I'll be quick. Thank you for your speech. Russia. It was a Russian intention that they want to cooperate with the two Koreas to construct the Trans-Korea Railroad. But recently there doesn't seem to be any progress on the project. So I would like to ask if how likely that the project will be complete in the future.
You mean
Trans-Korea Railroad?
China, Korea?
No, I mean Trans-Korea.
Trans-Korea.
Yeah.
There's a simple answer because of North Korea.
Yeah,
because if you receive the oil or kind of energy through North Korea by building some pipelines, for example, we don't trust North Korea. If they close the pipeline, then we cannot have a stable supply of energies. This will be nice kind of project. If North Korea lend the area for these pipelines and get some profits out of these businesses, then using this money, don't use this money for nuclear weapons, but use for industrialization, helping North Korean people, much nice. But even Russia, they are supportive and sympathetic to North Korea. But for this project, they are reluctant because it's not certain. We still have a lot of uncertainty involved. Okay. Another
Thank
question?
You.
This is the last one. because we go back to the to the backside.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. My question is about, well, Korean companies in future and their position, but basically Korea and Korean companies, and they got very famous around the world because of the Korean waves. And already, well, we can see Korean companies all over the world, but then what is a little bit interesting is that Korean companies' position is a little bit vague. We don't know, like, around the world, like Korean companies sometimes are considered as high-end and sometimes considered as low-end products. Well, Chinese products, well, we know that low quality and cheap, and Japanese products are high quality and a little bit more expensive, but Korean products are somehow in the middle. What do you think that the Korean companies are pursuing in future as their position in the world?
I think we have to, aim at the high-level brand and high-level quality. If you compete for mid-level or low-level qualities, you will be soon caught up by China and other ASEAN countries. We keep running a little bit faster than other countries. So using Korean wave, this is good opportunity for Korean companies, but only for specific items. You can actually go up to the advanced level because people trust, people like this brand. Okay, this is really good niche market. Korean companies doing it, but even in that case, you have to make best quality items. If they realize they are selling this because of Korean wave, but in fact the quality is not very good, then you lose credibility right away. Okay, so maybe big conglomerates of Korea is doing pretty good in terms of providing the best items to even developing country markets. Okay, I will stop here, and I really enjoyed your discussions, and I hope you have a very, very nice time at Korea University. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.